Ah, can you smell it, Hoosier fans? Can you feel it, Hoosier fans? Can you taste it, Hoosier fans? The date is July 30th, and fall practice begins today for Curt Cignetti and Indiana football. Let's go.
You are Locked On Hoosiers, your daily podcast on the Indiana Hoosiers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, and it is the Locked On Hoosiers podcast. I'm your man, Jacob Goins. I appreciate you being here, making this your first listen or your first watch every single day. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, which is your team every day. And we got a jam-packed show for you once again on this Wednesday edition of the show. We'll take a look at Indiana basketball recruiting a little bit more because there's another center prospect that the Hoosiers are going after in the 2026 class added to the list because Darren Devries is going to get somebody, and it could very well be this newer name. So we'll talk about that. Plus, with fall practice beginning today, we'll take a look at a couple more position battles that are going to be taking place for Curt Cignetti and Indiana football. We've talked about the offensive line, but there's a couple of more that I want to talk about on today's show. But as we mentioned, man, today is a wonderful day. Fall practice begins for Indiana football, and for most programs across the country, practice begins today. And man, it's so crazy because it didn't really hit me. I'll be completely honest with you. It didn't really hit me that football season was back until I was sitting down to do some prep and get ready for this show that we're recording. And I look at it and it's like, holy smokes. Fall practice is here. High school football, we're less than 3 weeks away. And I do some play-by-play for that. It's like, oh my God, football season is back. We're here. The summer is gone, which is a good thing because, man, I know the excitement level. I know the hype around this Indiana team. I know the fans. I know you are so excited to see this football team hit the field for the first time in 2025. And there's a ton of questions for this Indiana squad, right? The main one being from pretty much those on the outside is, all right, well, last year was great. Last year was fun. Congratulations. Can you do it again? What can you do? How do you follow it up? What do you do in year two? You shattered every record possible for Indiana. It's the most historical season that's ever happened in the history of the program, and you made it to the college football playoff. And you had a quarterback that was near a Heisman Trophy ceremony. You had a defense that was ranked number one in the entire country. You didn't trail to like your 9th game or something or 10th game or whatever it was in the season last year. You went on the road and beat several good teams. You beat Michigan last year. Things like that don't happen at Indiana football. But that is now the expectation with head coach Curt Cignetti. And you heard him speak that way last week at Big Ten Media Days. They expect this to be the tradition. They expect this to be the expectation, if for lack for a better word there. They want this to happen every single year. And I guarantee that when we have a chance to hear from Cignetti, probably throughout this week and then throughout fall camp, you're going to hear that. And you've already heard it from some of the players, right? The 3 guys that went to Big Ten Media Days. I mean, they're not holding anything back. But what I do like is that they're not living in the past. Remember, we talked about how, I believe it was Aiden Fisher that said that, or it was him or it was Michael Kamara, I can't remember. One of them said that they've removed all the college football playoff logos from the building, from their backpacks, from their water bottles, from anything. There is nothing in the facility that has last year's college football playoff logo on it because they don't want to live in the past. I love it. They want to do it again this year. And folks, I've been telling you, if you've been watching or listening to this show for quite some time, since the spring at least, I've told you this team is good enough to do it again. This team is talented enough to do it again. And I believe that by the time the season really gets rolling, you're going to see this team is more talented than last year's team. And that's a big step up, but I truly believe that to be the case. I think that's the case on the offensive line. I think that's the case in the secondary. I think that is the case in potentially the quarterback room, which would be pretty amazing, the fact that you could get better than what Curtis Rourke did for you a year ago. And so when you look at all of that, I really do believe that Indiana has everything at their disposal to be another really good football team, another double-digit win football team, and a team that makes it to the college football playoff. Just a reminder, in terms of what Indiana's schedule looks like, right? The kickoff Saturday, August 30th, that afternoon, taking on Old Dominion. Okay, they have Kennesaw State, then they have Indiana State, and I know the non-conference schedule sucks, and I personally hate that it's all stacked together, but it is what it is. Some people like it, some people don't. Then you open up at home in Big Ten play with Illinois. That's a team a lot of people are predicting to be good this year for obvious reasons. They're the highest returning production team in the Big Ten from a 10-win team a year ago. They are expected to be good, and a lot of people are picking the Illini to come here and beat Indiana in that game. You go to Iowa on September 27th, to Oregon, right? But with off a bye week there. Then you have Michigan State at home, UCLA at home. You go to Maryland, to Penn State. You host Wisconsin, have a bye week, and then you go to Purdue. And so we've talked about that schedule. We've talked about this roster. We've talked about this coaching staff. And so the question really becomes, well, what are the expectations? What would be a good season for Indiana football? Because so many people, and rightfully so, have talked about the inevitable step back, the inevitable kind of, okay, let's come back down to earth a little bit for Indiana. I get it. I absolutely get it. But those people that believe that Indiana is going to take a major step back, the inevitable step back, they believe that because they think last year was a fluke. I don't. I don't think last year was a fluke. And I don't think you do either, Indiana fans. Some people do. Some Indiana fans do. And a lot of the Big Ten fans do. A lot of college football fans do. And that's fine. That's totally fine. But I don't. And so is it fair to say that there could be a slight step back just because of everything that you achieved last year? Sure. It's going to be really hard to meet that or exceed that. There's no doubt about it, because you just had the most historical season in the history of the program, and you're saying, well, good luck beating that. I get it. But I think you can absolutely match it, and it will look different too. I think that's something we need to kind of dive into more as we go through fall is, man, this year's going to look different than last year. These are not going to be identical teams. It won't all play out the same way. It may not all be smooth sailing through the first 10 games of the year. You may have to fight a little bit harder early on, and you probably will. And that's okay. You just got to worry about winning games. Staying healthy and winning games is what Indiana's going to try and do. And you're going to hear that, you're going to see that, and you're going to feel that as fall camp begins, fall practice begins today for Indiana football. And with that, position battles come along too. And there are several that Indiana will be trying to kind of figure out coming up through the next couple of weeks before you kick off in literally 1 month. Let's talk about those position battles right after this here on the Locked On Hoosiers podcast. Today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers is brought to you by 5-Hour Energy Transfusion. Time to fuel up and turn it up with a 5-Hour Energy Transfusion. It brings the bold grape, ginger, and lime flavor of your favorite golf drink, minus the alcohol, into a quick, energizing shot. Whether you're sinking birdies or just making memories with friends, this one's a hole-in-one for your energy game. Let's be honest. Some days on the course or off the course, you just need that extra boost to stay sharp and energized. If you're making the turn or you're trying to get through that dreadful 3:00 hour in the afternoon, you need something to kind of pick you up, right? That's where a 5-Hour Energy Transfusion comes in. Golf is all about the good times with good people. I love to play golf. I play as much as I can. And good flavors, of course. The grape ginger lime flavor gives you the best parts of your clubhouse go-to without chasing down the bev cart. If you go to 5hourenergy.com today, that's the number 5hourenergy.com, you can use my promo code LOCKEDONGOLF to receive 20% off of your order. This offer is only valid until September 30th, so you got about 2 months to do that on one order and cannot be used with other promotions. The code is not good on subscription orders. Whether you're meeting up with friends or trying to turn 18 holes into 36, get the energizing boost you need to power through. Order transfusion flavored 5-Hour Energy shots today. Welcome back into Locked On Hoosiers. Appreciate you being here again, making this your go-to spot for all things Indiana athletics. And reminder, we are going to talk a little basketball coming up in just a little bit. More recruiting news and recruiting buzz a little bit for head coach Darren Devries on the big man front for 2026. So we'll talk about that in just a little bit. But with fall practice beginning today for Indiana football, and like I said, for most programs across the country, the big thing about fall is you try to figure out your depth chart, right? You try to figure out, okay, who's going to be the starter, who's going to be the second guy, who's going to be the backup, right? You're trying to figure out the two deep, and it's exciting. I love trying to figure this out, and it's something that luckily for Indiana, you have a pretty good idea on who's going to be starting at a lot of major positions. What you're going to have to find out through the fall is maybe who fills the other spot of that position and then who fills the backup spot of that position, meaning the linebacker spot, right? You have Aiden Fisher coming back. You got to get solidified the other linebacker spot. You're talking about the secondary. Think about the cornerback room for a second. You got your All-American D'Angelo Pons on one side. You got to get solidified on who's on the other side, and then who's going to come in to relieve them. The safeties and nickels are kind of all over the place, but which is a good thing. But you kind of look at the defensive line. That's kind of the same way, right? You bring back Michael Kamara, but now you're trying to throw in there a bunch of guys like Hosea Wheeler and guys like that. And so the offensive line is the exact same way. You feel pretty good about a couple of guys starting up there. We talked about that the other day, more in a moment. But you also have a couple of spots, I think, realistically on the offensive line, you have three that you need to fill. Two are given. I'm saying three are nearly given, but anyway, the running back room is fascinating too. And that's where I want to start right here, because you have several dudes in that room to play running back this year. You've got the UAB transfer in Lee Beebe Jr. You've got Roman Hemby, the Maryland transfer. And then you bring back Kaelon Black from a year ago, who I know didn't get a ton of reps just because of Ellison and Tyson Lawton, but you feel really good with the spots that you saw Kaelon Black in. You feel like he's got that potential to be RB1. And to be completely honest, I'm fascinated to hear if somebody will ask about this or if Curt Cignetti will bring this up or mention this at all. But I feel that this is a true battle in the running back room. And honestly, it should be, because I want to see what they all have. I want to see what they're able to do and kind of what that rotation looks like. And this will be the scenario for every position battle. I've talked a lot of crap about the week non-conference schedule to start, right? The fact that you play Old Dominion, Kennesaw State, and Indiana State back to back to back before you play anybody real. But if there is a positive to that, okay? If there is a positive, you have the opportunity to truly figure out what your two deep looks like. You know exactly who's going to be starting for you. You know exactly who stands behind him, and you know all the depth pieces and your emergency situations, right? You better have all of that figured out by the time you play those three teams and you win by a combined score of 308. Okay. You better have that all figured out. What you don't want is anybody getting injured in games like that don't mean a whole lot. I'm not saying it's going to happen, not wishing it to happen. I'm just saying that's something that concerns me when you're playing those types of games. But it will give you the opportunity to get a bunch of guys in, throw a bunch of different things at them, and operate a little differently than you would normally, just to kind of test them a little bit, as long as you're in a situation winning the game and comfortable enough to do that, right? And with the offensive line, with the running back room, you absolutely have an opportunity to do that, because that's pretty much the only two on the offensive side of the football, other than maybe the third receiver spot, on who you really have questions about. And with the running back room, again, my assumption is that Kaelon Black will be considered, and I put air quotes up for those of you listening, will be considered RB1, running back one. But I'm telling you right now, if there's a prediction that I have, it's that Roman Hemby is going to be really, really good. And don't sleep on Beebe, the UAB transfer too. But I'm just telling you, man, Roman Hemby's a different beast. All right. I think he's really, really good. I think that he's somebody that has legitimate P4 experience, somebody that's proven it at this level, and someone that I just think is a really solid ball carrier, someone who's got the speed, he's got the size, he's got the security. I think he could emerge as RB1 at some time this season. But regardless, here, I still trust Kaelon Black. And I do think this is a prime example of just because you're the starter doesn't mean that you will be getting 70% of the carries or 80% of the carries or anything. Just look at a year ago. It didn't happen that way last year. Don't expect it to happen that way this year, unless one of these guys just emerges and just runs away from everybody else, literally. So that's what I'm telling you. Just keep an eye out for Roman Hemby. That's one that I'm really fascinated to watch as a running back room. I'm not worried about the running backs. Let me say that. Let me kind of clarify that too. I'm not worried about the room. I'm not worried about their production. I'm not worried about whether they will be effective and impactful when Big Ten play begins. It really is just trying to figure out what that rotation looks like, which is a luxury. It absolutely is a luxury that Indiana has going into this year. Paired with that is the offensive line. And I told you that I wrote this down the other day. I'm sticking with this for now. Okay. I have Carter Smith starting at left tackle. I have Pat Coogan starting at center. I personally, for now, have Zen Mikulski starting at right tackle. That's where I have him going for now. Could he slide in and be a guard? Absolutely. My predictions for right now are Carter Smith at left tackle, Pat Coogan at center, and Mikulski at right tackle. Then that leaves you with Drew Evans if he's healthy enough, right? Coming off the injury. Cignetti told us that the other day. That also gives you Khalil Benson, the Colorado transfer, who was also kind of banged up in the spring. And that gives you Bray Lynch, who's going to be fighting for that other guard spot. I think if everybody's fully healthy, ready to go, I put Drew Evans at left guard and I put Benson at right guard. Just because Khalil Benson played on the right side, I believe played on the right side at Colorado more, and he also played on the right side when he was in Indiana the first time. So I think that's where Benson will be, whether it's tackle or guard, but him and Mikulski could probably flip-flop if needed to be, but that's my prediction for now. Smith at left tackle, Evans at left guard, Coogan at center, Benson right guard, and Mikulski at right tackle. Could that change? Absolutely. Could my opinion change? Absolutely. But that's just kind of how I feel going into fall practice, and we'll kind of see what that looks like as well. I mentioned something about the receivers really quickly, and just want to throw in there the idea that you bring in a lot of talent on that side, but Jonathan Brady, the Cal transfer, is the one that's going to see some action. Now, whether he's in the slot, whether he's outside, I don't know where they really want to use him just yet. He's going to get some playing time, and he's going to get some attention because you have Elijah Surratt, you have Omar Cooper, but you need a third in there somewhere. And I'm telling you that it very well could be Jonathan Brady, the California transfer. And so that's the offensive side. Quickly on the defensive side, I mentioned earlier about the corner going opposite of D'Angelo Ponds. This is the one that is most fascinating to me before we move into basketball, because D'Angelo Ponds is incredible. And the fact that he came back and didn't go to the draft is a miracle, really, and excited to have him back for another year. But you have several dudes who I think could absolutely start. And I think you have some dudes that are going to be flirting with the idea of playing on Sundays. I really do. You have one returner that I think is going to be in the mix for this, Jamari Sharp, who's been here for his entire career. He's coming back from a year ago. He's kind of been moved around a little bit and kind of waiting to get his true shot. And it very well could be this year. But I'm telling you, I like Marion Knight and Rylan Gandy. You bring in two dudes who started, one at Northern Illinois and one at Pittsburgh. You've got some serious dudes back there. This is a legitimate competition. And I'll say this. I think the second cornerback spot could be the most competitive battle we have all fall. I think it very well could, because I think all three of those guys are incredible. I really, really do. Dude, I'm so excited about Marion Knighton when he came in from NIU. And then when we got Rylan Gandy from Pittsburgh, we talked about both of them here on the show, man. You just look at their stats, you look at their numbers, you look at their film. I mean, they're ball hogs out there, and you just don't throw to them because they're going to make a play. And so it's going to be hard to keep all of them off the field. And this could be a situation too. Just because you get the start doesn't mean you get a ton of, or the majority of the snaps. You could have a rotation here, and the same thing's going to happen with the safeties as well. You have a huge luxury if you're Indiana football, man. And so really excited for what the secondary looks like, for what the defense looks like, for what the offense looks like, for what all these position battles end up becoming this fall as it begins today. If you can't tell, I'm pumped. I'm excited. I can't wait, man. I'm so excited to get this thing started and get into football season because summer's been fun, but it's time for football season to be here. And it is. And it starts today with Indiana's fall practice. All right, coming up here in our final segment on Locked On Hoosiers, we will talk a little basketball as Devries in Indiana going after yet another center in the class of 2026. We'll tell you who, and we'll tell you why right after this. All right, final segment here on Locked On Hoosiers. Again, thank you so much for being here and choosing this and making this your first listen or your first watch every single day. And hey, man, if you have not subscribed to the YouTube channel, if you're watching this right now, or even if you're listening to it and you need something to do today, go to the YouTube channel, Locked On Hoosiers, and hit that subscribe button, okay? It's free. It's easy. Literally takes one tap. It's going to tell you every time we post a new episode, when we post new shorts, when we post a new survey, right? We do all sorts of things on there, and we're trying to get to 6,000 subscribers, and we're almost there. We're 24 away. And I believe that if we all come together, we can get there before Friday, August 1st. Wouldn't that be awesome to kick off the month of August with 6,000 subscribers on YouTube? So do that for me if you don't mind. I'd really appreciate that. Locked On's growing like crazy. And man, I've seen so many of our guys hit big milestones this week, and I'd love to be a part of that. So make sure you do that. Really appreciate it. Also like the video, comment down below as well your thoughts on fall practice. What position battle do you want to see and hear about? Do you have any predictions for the fall in some of these position battles for IU? And then if you are listening on audio, whatever platform that may be, make sure you hit subscribe if it's a thing, follow if you can, and hit that notification bell as well so you never miss a new episode of Locked On Hoosiers. All right, so final segment here, and I told you we're going to talk a little bit of basketball. We had to start with football today, of course, with fall practice, but 247 put out a national article about some updates on the biggest names in the 2026 class that are undecided. And Indiana's in a lot of them, per usual, and as we've talked about. But the one that I wanted to talk about today was somebody who we've mentioned, and I think we've talked about on the show once or twice, but we might start talking about him a little bit more. He's 7 feet tall, 245 pounds. He's from Branson, Missouri, and his name is Ethan Taylor. He is a very, very high-rated 4-star, top 25 player in the class of 2026. Depending on where you look, he's the second-ranked center in the entire country. He's clearly the number 1 player out of the state of Missouri, but he's a top 2, top 3 transfer in all of high school basketball. And the reason we're talking about it today is because 247 says that Indiana is right there in one of the contenders. Says Kansas, Kansas State, Indiana, Baylor, Oregon, Missouri, Oklahoma, and Florida State. And says the feeling was Kansas because believe he grew up like 45 minutes to an hour from there. But Ethan Taylor's a stud, dude. He's obviously massive at 7 feet tall, 245. And I know Indiana fans love the idea of a 7-footer being on the team. And it says that folks like Indiana and Baylor are starting to make a pretty good push. And just add Ethan Taylor to the list of all the big centers that we have talked about in terms of recruiting. I mean, man, look at all these kids. Arafan Diani. I'm looking at the list right now. Arafan Diani, Ethan Taylor, Davion Atkins, Darius Ratliff. We've talked about him a little bit. Marcus Ponder, who committed to Florida State, but we talked about him and Indiana went after him. Luigi Suigo, you remember him. Also, we told you about another international kid yesterday. If you missed it, be sure you go and check out the episode from yesterday. I mean, Indiana's going after the best of the best in terms of the centers in the class of 2026, which I think probably the centers and the point guards are the ones that are really carrying this 2026 class. I've dug into it and done a little bit more research, and I understand where some of these recruiting experts are saying the fact that the 2026 class is pretty weak compared to what we saw in 24 and 25, which, I mean, those classes were just absolutely loaded. And I see what they're saying, especially top to bottom, right? The depth of this class doesn't have the weight that some of the others did, but I do think the centers are really, really good. And you have to include some of those international kids in that conversation as well. And we know what Indiana's done in terms of their international connections. But with Ethan Taylor in particular, I think you're there. I think you're absolutely making waves here. And if you can get him away from some of those local schools of Kansas or Kansas State or what else did I say in there? Missouri or Oklahoma. If you can get him out of that area for just a little bit and realize, hey, man, you could come and be a star at Indiana. You could come and be a legend at IU. I think it'd be a great idea. I really, really do. And so, Indiana's not going to, as far as I know, you're not going to pick up two big centers like this. You're pretty much just throwing offers out there and trying to get visits and see which one sticks. And then you're hoping that you can have that you can have your pick at one of the best centers in high school basketball. But clearly, Devries and the staff have made it apparent and a focus and a goal to go after a big man in 2026. And I think you should. You should always have big men, because what you're going to have on the team this time next year is kind of up in the air, right? You'll have Asimovich, who we talked about yesterday, because he's got 4 years of eligibility, but you won't have Reed Bailey. You're going to have to go find somebody. You need some big men. You'll have to hit the portal, sure, but you'd love to have one coming in through the high school ranks. And knowing Devries, he probably wants one to come in almost every year, right? We were concerned about size, and now all of a sudden you go get some for this year's team, and now you're recruiting the best ones in the country for next year's team. And so keep an eye out for Ethan Taylor, okay? We'll see if we can get some more, if something more develops here, if there's more to come with Ethan Taylor. Again, a top 25 player in the class of 2026, considered one of the best centers in the class of 2026 as well. And 247, the national writers are saying Indiana's making some waves, making a push, and going to try and land one of the best centers in the class. All right, that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers. Again, thank you so much for being here. Cannot stress how much fun we're having, how excited we are for August to be right around the corner, for football season to be back, and basketball is going to be right there too. This is your one-stop shop, all right? This is where you need to be for all your Indiana athletics news, is Locked On Hoosiers, okay? We are back tomorrow, Hoosier fans, for another episode. So until then, stay safe, and I'll talk to you later.